My parents refused to pay for my college tuition, saying I should be independent, but they offended the wrong dream. The day my parents told me they would not pay for my college tuition, the sun was bright and cruel, pouring through the living room window as if mocking the sudden darkness inside my chest. I remember standing there with my acceptance letter in my hand, the paper trembling slightly, not from the breeze but from the weight of disappointment. They said independence builds character. They said struggle makes people stronger. What they did not see was that, in that moment, they were cutting the rope just as I was stepping off a cliff, hoping I could somehow learn to fly before I hit the ground. My name is Elias Moreno, and I grew up believing hard work could fix almost anything. I had been a good student, the kind teachers pointed at when they talked about potential. I studied in the mornings, worked part-time in the afternoons, and dreamed at night about lecture halls, libraries filled with sunlight, and a future that felt bigger than the narrow streets of our town. College was not just education for me, it was escape, purpose, and proof that the sacrifices I had already made were leading somewhere. When my parents refused to help, it felt less like a lesson and more like abandonment dressed up as wisdom. The weeks that followed were a blur of daylight exhaustion. I enrolled anyway, choosing a public university 2 hours away because it was all I could afford. My days began before sunrise, delivering groceries on an old bicycle while the city yawned awake. By late morning, I sat in classrooms, fighting sleep as professors spoke about theories and ideas that once thrilled me but now felt distant through my fatigue. Afternoons were spent shelving books at the campus library, breathing in the smell of paper and dust, reminding myself that this was still where I belonged. Every evening, I returned to a small shared room with peeling paint and a window that faced a brick wall glowing orange in the setting sun. There were moments when independence felt like a cruel joke. I skipped meals to save money, counting coins under harsh fluorescent lights. I watched other students laugh in cafeterias, their backpacks light, their worries lighter. Sometimes I wondered if my parents ever thought about me when they ate dinner together in our old house, sunlight still streaming across the same table where they had told me to stand on my own. Pride kept me from calling them, and fear kept me from admitting how close I was to breaking. What kept me going was a quiet determination that grew stronger each time I wanted to quit. I found refuge in the campus library during the daytime, sunlight filtering through tall windows, warming the wooden desks. I began staying longer, not just to work but to learn. One afternoon, while organizing donated books, I discovered a scholarship bulletin board hidden behind a shelf. Most were small grants, overlooked and forgotten. I applied to every single one, writing my story again and again until my hands cramped and my heart felt raw. Each application was a small act of hope, sent into the world without expectation. Rejection letters arrived first, thin envelopes that stung but did not surprise me. Then one day, in the middle of a bright afternoon, I opened an email that changed everything. A local foundation had read my essay. They believed in resilience, in students who carried their education on tired shoulders. The scholarship did not cover everything, but it was enough to let me breathe. Enough to buy proper meals. Enough to reduce my working hours and actually listen in class again. That day, the campus looked different. The trees seemed taller, the sky wider, as if the world itself was acknowledging my persistence. As months passed, my grades improved, and so did my confidence. Professors began noticing me, not as the exhausted student in the back row, but as someone with insight and quiet fire. I earned another small grant, then a paid internship that aligned with my studies. Daytime became my ally again, filled with purpose instead of panic. I started believing that independence did not mean being alone, it meant learning how to stand even when no one held you up. Near the end of my second year, my parents visited the campus for the first time. They walked beside me under the afternoon sun, past buildings that had witnessed my silent battles. I did not need to explain my journey. It was written in my posture, my calm voice, the way I spoke about my future with clarity instead of desperation. For the first time, I saw something soften in their eyes. Not guilt, exactly, but understanding. I realized then that their refusal had shaped me, but it did not define me. I had turned scarcity into strength, loneliness into focus, and doubt into drive. I was no longer chasing independence to prove them right or wrong. I was living it because I had earned it, step by painful step, under countless ordinary days filled with extraordinary endurance. If this story touched you, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need a reminder that their struggle is not invisible. And before you go, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about a challenge you faced alone, because your story might be the light someone else is searching for. By the time I walked across the stage at graduation, daylight flooded the auditorium, and applause echoed like a promise kept. I did not look for my parents in the crowd. I looked forward, toward a future built not by comfort, but by courage. And in that moment, I understood that independence was never about being abandoned. It was about discovering the strength you never knew you had, and choosing to rise anyway.